Welcome to Grit and Glory, a podcast about what performance culture gets wrong and what it costs the people who buy in. With two athletes turned institutional critics who've lived inside the systems they're taking apart, they bring their combined experience in sport and high-pressure professional life to conversations that are honest, embodied, and unafraid. No optimization hacks, no motivational theater, conversations that are honest, embodied, and unafraid. So get ready to experience grit and glory.
Welcome everybody to episode 2 of Grit and Glory. For those who are watching us for the first time, tell them what this is about, please.
This is a podcast about grit and glory, and it's not about the glory that you typically think, and it's not about the grit that you typically think. Here, we'll be unpacking the definitions that will resonate with you, our loyal listeners, to really just blow up this conversation and learn in the process, not only about yourself, but one another.
Awesome. Yes. And we do this with coffee and other drinks. So you're welcome to get the drinks because we're here amongst friends. But before we start,
Yes.
how's your week been? And we're gonna be like 2 weeks ahead on every recording. But how's your week going? How you been?
Well, you know what? It has been a flurry of activity because I recently joined a business mentorship program that will take me on a 6-month journey to really help me in my entrepreneurial business as an online coach. And so just to give our listeners a bit more context, I am a fitness and nutrition coach for women. I have a client roster with women from the ages of 28 to 82, and it is such a fulfilling opportunity for me to be able to help these women go from not confident in the gym to confident and really feeling better about themselves overall, not just physically, but mentally too. So that said, I'd really like to help more women, and moving online will help me do that. So this week has been a lot of onboarding. It's been a bit overwhelming, I have to admit, but I had a call with my coach this morning, and he really helped me just see the clarity in the road ahead and helped me to streamline my activities because I'm the type of person who likes to get everything done right away. So I had to really just release all this pressure that I put on myself to succeed 1,000% right out of the gate. I know that's impossible. So, why am I doing that to myself? I tell this to my clients, take one step at a time. So I had to remind myself to do that. And so that's what this week has been. And it's so funny that we're talking about grit and glory here, because I also mentioned to my coach that I'm competitive by nature, and I just can't help it. It's something that I think, I hesitate to say this, but I feel like I was born with it because my dad is very competitive, and he always encouraged me and my brothers to win. That's it, just win, or just be number one. I'm like, okay, right? So it was something that I just, all right, I just had to be number one in my class, or be number one at everything I tried. And so with sports, even with sports, anyhow, we'll get into that another time. But that was
that's awesome.
Long-winded answer, Edwin.
No, I love it. No, that's good. No, that's the whole point, right? To talk about ourselves and talk to people about probably the same thing they're going through. What should we call it? My week has not been as exciting. I've been just writing a lot.
Yeah.
I have another podcast, and that went great. But I don't know if you saw it.
I did. Oh my God. I love it. I love what you're putting out, Edwin. And I love your literary mind. And I also love how you are able to package your stories in such a visually compelling way with the graphics that you create to accompany your prose. So,
Oh, thanks.
yeah.
So then I had an interesting conversation with some friends over the weekend, which led me to write an essay, which will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. It's actually has a lot to do with what we're going to talk about today. So I won't spoil it, but I can give you the title name. I already have the name for it. It's called "So I Got Bad Teeth." So I had bad teeth. That's it. And he talks about identity and identity of people who have done sports and how that conflicts or sort of lives in a space where you do business and other things beyond the sport or whatever. But it got me thinking about that before we looked at the show notes for today. But yeah, we're talking about last week.
X gon' give it to you. Wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you. Knock, knock, open up the door, it's real. With the non-stop pop out and stainless steel. Go hard getting busy with it. But I got such a good heart that I make the mother wonder if you get it. Damn right, can I do it?
But yeah, we're talking about, last week we talked about grit. And today we're going to talk about glory. And I guess maybe we should start with what is our, each other's definition of glory, and then take it from there and maybe take it apart based on all of the research that we've been doing for the show. So why don't you go first?
Yeah, thank you.
What is your definition of glory?
So, first off, the question, who defines glory? We have to take into consideration the various audiences, right? So, is it you, or is it your sport, your industry? Like, who makes up your audience, right? And so I think that whenever you put yourself out there and someone sees the outcome or the result, they are the ones who reflect back your glory when you're in that moment of achievement. But at the same time, it's so funny that I think that when we do reach a milestone and we share it with the world, we do expect that return. So in a sense, it's almost like, I think what you put out into the world, that is what gets reflected back at you. And if it's glory, and it's glory that you seek, I think it's almost directly relative to that. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I think that it does depend on your audience, but at the same time, you create it. You can also own your glory. And I feel that sometimes we're too dependent on others to define what glory is. And I think we're also, maybe that's why we're always chasing glory, because we think that it's ephemeral, but really you should own it. And that's what should prop you up, not by what others say. But at the same time, celebrities are celebrities because of their audiences. So that's another form of glory, if you know what I mean.
Right. And I think modern athletes, which is, I'm glad I didn't have that problem growing up as an athlete. And I know you didn't either, which I think it's a relief, was having to have this online persona and like having this multimedia presence and whatnot, which I just think is a whole lot of noise. It just doesn't compute with my brain, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
I don't know.
thank fuck there was no social media back when I was honestly in my early 20s, because I think of, that young tennis player who ended up smashing her racket to bits after she lost, and that was captured by all sorts of media. And she knew that no matter where she went, she was going to be caught. So I don't know. There's a little element of how far do you take it in terms of also recording those private moments, because nothing is private anymore.
Right. And also, and at the same time, there's this duality, right? Where it becomes a meme or becomes viral at some point, and then it doesn't. And then people forget about you.
Yeah.
But but as a person, as an individual, that stays with you. Like, you don't forget. People move on, but you don't. And that, and that's that kind of self-punishment. I just think it will be really difficult to deal with, because even back in the day when we didn't have so much social media, it was still hard, even for us sports that are not as on the news and whatnot. In fact, and I'm gonna veer off and then come back. I promise. The part of the novel that I've written,
Mm-hmm.
one part of the background story of the guy, the male character, he is a former athlete, like a child prodigy, and he tried for the Olympics a few times. He didn't make it, and he is in this transactional love exchange with everybody in his world, including his parents,
Mm-hmm.
and he sort of has detached himself from his parents because he didn't get to the Olympics. So like his parents are like, well, yeah, you made Olympic qualifier, but you didn't make the Olympic. But it would have been the same if it would have been like, you made the Olympic, but you didn't get the goal, or you got the goal, but you didn't make it the next time. So there was always a need to earn love through competition, which I think it deals with some of the stuff you touched on your definition of glory, depending on what people expect you to do. And in the story, what happens is the guy sort of pulls away from society, from that space anyway, because everybody just pretty much they told him he was a failure. He was a failure at age 16,
Mm-hmm.
17 or something. And imagine, ESPN saying like, this kid's a failure. Like, your brain is not fully developed. And people are saying that just because you didn't win one competition out of the many that you have competed on, it's a very painful thing, right? To
Mm-hmm.
define glory like that. So I think that there is an audience that receives the end product of your work, like you said, and they help define the glory. But I think there's also, and probably more important, is the part of people, not people, but you reflecting onto people that what you embrace
Mm-hmm.
is the process of getting to the thing, and that takes a lot more time,
Mm-hmm.
to develop as an athlete or as a professional. What is in your experience? How has that worked for you as far as embracing the process and sort of like graduating from win to like actually embracing the process of like, I'm actually enjoying this again.
So that actually happened after my Worlds competition. So post Worlds, I entered another bodybuilding competition that was just in the local stage, so provincial wide. And I don't know, there was a switch that went off in my head to just say, you know what, like, let's just enjoy it. And I was enjoying the process a heck of a lot more than I was the last time. The last time for Worlds, I was putting so much pressure on myself to win at all costs. I wasn't enjoying it, but I didn't know that. Until I went through that experience, I realized when I competed immediately after that, it was almost as if the pressure, like I didn't have that same pressure. And that phrase of trusting the process really exists for a reason, because when you do embrace the process, you allow yourself mentally to just relax and fall into the rhythms that you create in order to prepare for said achievement or goal that you've set out for yourself. And funny enough, I ended up winning not one, but one gold medal and then a bronze medal for that competition, because I was just so relaxed and I wasn't expecting anything from it. So that happened only after I had experienced being so hard on myself throughout and not really paying attention to the process. I just wanted to, and to quote your words, win, win, win. That's all I wanted, right? And I now know the difference between trusting the process, trusting yourself, but also enjoying each moment rather than fretting and trying to ensure you have a perfect product every time. Your path is going to be filled with ups and downs, so you need to be flexible with it. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself crazy. And it's a work in progress, though, and people will arrive at that in their own time. But I think you do, in a way, have to experience that win-win-win mentality and kind of understand what it is before you can enjoy trusting yourself again and trusting the process.
Right. I think I don't know who said it, but they say something like the distance between what you want and where you are. That gap is pain, and wanting to win so badly is painful. I think until you understand what it is all about, and I think until you remember why you're doing this in the first place, because you did it when you started as a child, or even as an amateur at the beginning on any sport. You do it because you love it. You fall in love with the sport and you do it. And I think that the next level of glory as a personal um, uh, experience, that's the second round of glory, the newfound glory, is falling in love with the sport again. But I think it translates to in the business world, where people have said to me that I've never worked in my life because I always done what I like to do, and I'm always having fun. And whenever I haven't had fun, I walk away from what I'm doing and works on something else. Uh, and I never felt that I always felt like consistency was overrated. Like to be in a job for 10 years, I always thought it sounded like a badge of honor from like the 18th century, that you just needed to suffer to show that you are graceful and men of principle. I just figured, I'm a modern man. I know what I like, and I just want to move on. But I think I learned that from sports. How does that work for you? How has that worked for you in your experience? As far as like, is that translated, that embracing the process and loving what you do into your professional life?
So it's an interesting analogy, because when I went into PR, I did not see myself as the lifer staying at an agency for 10 years. My goal was to stay at a shop and move every 2 years. And I did in the beginning, but then my MO was move every 5 years. So I actually stuck to that. And 5 years was just a better number because it increased your marketability as a PR pro with recruiters, because they wanted to see some semblance of stability with where you landed. But unfortunately with PR, because companies tend to regard PR as a nice to have in their marketing plans, even the way that agencies treat their employees, you'll always hear the motto of "we always care for our people." I experienced it firsthand. They don't really. They do all they can to hire the best and the brightest. When they bring them in, they don't really do anything more to keep them there, because they're always looking for the next new shiny thing. And it's all about winning new business, unless you have these solid clients that'll stay with you for 30 years plus. And mind you, the last agency that I was at for 5 years does have one of those legacy clients. But I felt that the people who stayed at agencies for 10 years plus, I looked at them as like fossils. Like, to me, they just like, how can they stay sharp by being in that one role for so long? Because PRs is such a grueling, in my opinion, industry where you try to squeeze out the creative ideas from your people so you could best serve your clients. And getting creative now in today's landscape is, in my opinion, a lot tougher. Yes, we have AI to help people out, but I think people are forgetting how to think for themselves too, and they are getting lazy in the use of AI. At least that's what I've heard from a couple of people who are still in the industry and I stay in touch with. So I feel that it has really affected me and how I treated my corporate life. Like, I was never part of the mainstream when I worked in corporate, and I think that's probably why I eventually left, because for the last 5 years I had felt like something was missing in my life, and I thought, oh my God, there's got to be more than life, more to life than having this type of a career where I'm just dying to get out by like 5. I'm looking at the clock, and I was uninspired. I felt the people around me I couldn't learn from them, or I just didn't want to learn from them. And I didn't see anybody around me who I wanted to emulate. Because for me, if I can't find someone who I can look up to and want to aspire to, then I feel like I'm in the wrong place, wrong business. So that's how I felt. I felt like there was just nobody I could turn to really for support, because the people above me were very selfish and competitive, against sharing any intel with me to help me grow. And I thought, wow, they're bastards. At least that's what I thought. That was my perception. And I was always happy to help the people that I was grooming and the people that I was directly managing to grow and flourish. And because I was giving so much to them, I felt the gap that I was not getting that from the top down. Like they were not supportive of me. So that's okay. You know, they are. I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm just saying that that was the culture I was in, and the people who were at the top. I found out recently that one of the women who was a lifer, she got laid off about 2 months ago. Of course, like that's the way of big agencies. So big agencies are reorganizing themselves, and there are more people just getting, I guess, absolved out of their positions. So
you made me think of a lot of things. So you made me think of a lot of things. The first one that comes to mind is I just read a paper on Substack actually from this young woman, Paulina Perez. She talks about, you know, all these people coming out into the labor force now, and what their expectation is, and how, you know, us how we lie to them. You know, like the generations prior lie to them, saying, you know, if you go to school and study this, there's gonna be a job waiting for you and a career. And she's saying, well, with AI and all this stuff, you know, none of that exists. And then all these people are going into the labor force, and look at them, like, you know, looking around all the grown-ups, right? They're all miserable because they're in this environment where, you know, people say they're competitive. They're really not. Like when you describe some of the people you describe, they're more like self-obsessed, you know, which is very different than being.
You're right.
Being competitive is being part of the team. That, you know, at least in my experience, right, and probably yours too, from sports and high performing teams in at the work in the corporate level too. True leadership and competitiveness is reflected on that, and that's why it's important to have in corporate America. But so she was talking about how and it feels like you are sort of ahead of the curve here. That, you know, they shouldn't look at their careers by way of having a long tenure, but rather 2 years here, you know, and so on, and then move on to something else, because the people that are hiring you are not necessarily they're not interested in investing in you, so you really shouldn't be interested in investing in them. At the same time, some of the stuff that you said too, I think it has a lot of value, because research shows, and we'll probably, if I find it, I'll put it on the notes for the show. Yeah, it's very true in sports, and you see it because you like soccer, so you know what I'm talking about. But it's also true in the corporate world. People recommend that research suggests to hire, instead of hiring people, hiring teams, because when you have a team of people, they're high performing teams. They do well, and they do well for about 2 to 3 years. And then if you want the team to continue to be successful, you got to move in somewhere else, because if not, they sort of get kind of like you're saying, like, they get like the fat cat syndrome. They sort of like, oh, they're really comfortable in their laurels, and then they stop challenging themselves and
Mhm.
each other.
Mhm.
So, and that's why you see, like in professional soccer, football, for example, like you hardly ever see a coach that is in one place for more than 3 seasons. Usually, for the top teams, right? There's some exceptions, like Joel Simeone, and there's like maybe a couple of coaches in the Premier League that have been there for like almost a decade. But that's the exception rather than the rule. And
Yeah.
and it's true for the world. You want, and I have done that before. Like once I learned that, I'm like, let me try it. I have
Mhm.
had I have hire by different groups and organizations, and I have also part of my negotiation has always been, well, I want to be able to hire some people to come to bring with me because I know that they're going to help me perform better.
Mhm.
And the second I come in with a succession plan of I'm going to be here for like 3 years, maybe
Mhm.
4 times,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I'm going to get to the point where a monkey can do my job. And then once I've done that, then I should really go somewhere else because, like you said, I'm going to be bored. I'm not going to have anybody from whom to learn, and it's time for me to go. But then I do my job. So,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
yeah, you brought a lot of really interesting points on that.
I'm glad.
The Yeah, I love it. Maybe that's why we're friends.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that we have had experiences that have shaped us, and they have been similar in different container, but similar output in terms of how we both felt. And it's this sharing of our experiences, I think, that has enabled us to connect so well in the way that we
Yeah.
are. So the next question is about post achievement emptiness. And um, I feel like that is a topic that is rarely talked about. So, Edwin, why do you think that happens?
Well, you touched on this a little earlier, and it sort of sparked uh, trauma. No, it sort of sparked something in me, and I'll tell you an anecdote. I wasn't planning on sharing, but I think it's appropriate. You grow up, you're competitive, and this is true for even people who don't do sports. I think you grow up being very competitive and saying, I'm going to achieve something, and then going, okay, what's next? And I'm going to achieve something and saying, what's next? And then achieve something, saying, what's next? And you get into this really, what I think I've learned anyway for me, it's a bad habit because you never get a chance to actually enjoy and measure the success to build and becoming part of your base to improve.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't learn that until later on. And honestly, for me, it wasn't until very, very late in the whole process in my professional life that actually somebody actually stopped me and say, "You gotta enjoy the win, man," because um, like I was at this particular organization where I was lobbying for civil rights for people with disabilities, and when I got there, they didn't have a lot of money, and I said, "I'm not worried about money. I never have. I'm gonna make you money, and when I make you money, you'll pay me more." And long story short, at this place, I got about 5 different promotions in like very little time. Because I made the money. So, but that took time to create the team, put it all together, and whatever. But every time I got an appraisal, or every time we had a successful event or a successful campaign or whatever, everybody was happy. And then my boss at the time will come and the CEO will say, "Hey, good job. I'm really proud of you, whatever." And my answer was always the same. Well, I was just doing my job. Like the minimum requirement for me to be here is to do what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me outperform myself next time. I promise I'll do better. And I went through that, and then we hit a pretty major success. We This teammate of mine and we managed to secure enough revenue for the company, for the organization, to grow 40% in revenue, which is pretty significant. I mean, that hardly ever happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we got a lot of, everybody's happy, and the whole time, everybody's celebrating. I'm going, no, this is great, but now we're ready. Now we have a different base, and now we're ready to move on to the next level, and we're going to graduate from this 40% growth. Now we need to look at what we're going to do in the next 10 years. And then we need to grow whatever. And maybe I'm not going to be here in 10 years, but we need to have a plan to get to the next level. Because now we need to graduate from where we are to like 5 times bigger. And at that point, my partner said, Edwin, you got it. Just take the win, man. Like, you don't know how to win. And I'm like, I know how to win. I mean, people, I know I've been winning all my life. She's like, no, you don't. You don't enjoy it. Like, people are saying, people are happy they're here. And it brought me back to a conversation that I heard before about, this need to always try to please the ones around you and the ones that you think love you because they expect you, like the way for you to get love is by winning. So that sort of that idea of I'm only worth the product that I produce, right? And I used to always say, you are as successful as your last failure. And I said that all the time. I don't know when I learned that, but I said that throughout my whole life. Sometimes I make the mistake of still saying that. But it really hit me. It took me a good 1.5 to 2 years to really start embracing and enjoying some wins and enjoying the process of getting to something and actually going, it's okay to feel good. Because going back to what you were saying about, this achievement emptiness, I never felt that and I said this the other day, but I never felt that you learned anything from winning. I feel like for me, it was always like, if you win a gold medal or if you place at all, you get a medal, right? You're going to get attention from girls. I mean, I was younger. From girls and other people that want to be your friends, fake friends, for like a week, maybe a couple of days. But the second those medals start, collecting dust, they're going to forget about you. So you need to keep winning if you want to stay on top and be noticed. And I didn't realize that they stayed with me for a long time. And I think that post-achievement emptiness is a real thing for people who do sports, but also for people who are trying so hard to always succeed without looking at what they have achieved as a baseline and say, okay, we got here. This is the new business as usual. Let's grow. Let's continue to grow, but let's enjoy a little bit. Let's just try to give credit where credit's due and give the team that joy. Because when you act like that, you take away joy from the team too. All the people that helped you, it's almost like you're telling everybody. It's like that bad overachieving parent that's like, you got an A, well then you get an A plus. It's it's tough, like and you don't like when people do that to you. People don't like to do that to them, and you're like, I just want to win. And the second you win, you're empty. It's a sad space. I don't know. What do you think?
I do think it's a sad space. And I also think that it really segs well into the following question about external validation versus internal validation. And so I think that those two topics go hand in hand. The person who constantly wants to win, I think, is always looking for that external validation. And like you were saying, once your trophies or your medals start to collect dust, they get worried that adulation is going to disappear. So I think that those two competing feelings or concepts, external versus internal, when it comes to glory, I think is another topic that people can struggle with, or a concept that they can struggle with, What do you think?
But do you think now, I mean, obviously I'm validating what you're saying, right? Sorry for the cacophony, but yeah, I validate what you're saying when you say that you need validation from the outside. I mean, that was my problem for a long time. But do you think that there's also a level of internal validation that you have sort of trapped in you that also helps you get ahead, but also gets in the way of it. It's like the balloon and the anchor at the same time. Like what is your experience with that, with the internal validation?
So you're gonna kill me, but I feel like
And how
I
do
answered
you relate to
another
it?
question. No, because what is it when it comes to glory? Does it have to be externally validated to be glory, or can you have a glorifying moment? Is it still a glorifying moment if nobody's there to enjoy it with you, or is it just something that you can experience and fully appreciate if you're just in, the universe of you? Does that make sense? So I feel like
No, it totally makes sense.
it's almost like it's almost like a spiritual question, because I think, well, even when I'm not religious by any means, but I think of the term glory in, what is that, prayer, or glory to the blah, blah, blah. There's something glory to God.
Glory blank.
Yeah, glory in God. And so, obviously God, at least the concept, is supposed to be omnipresent, and maybe glory is something I think you have to feel internally, but also, is that enough for people? I don't know. I think that's the question. I don't know if in glory is just felt internally, will they feel that same satisfaction if there's nobody around to enjoy it with them? I don't know where you draw the line, because
Well, it's funny. Maybe it's because I read it recently. Right. I think I'm trying to learn it. It may, and perhaps because I just read it recently. Maybe I want to grow up to be like the person I was telling you before that I read the article, Paulina. Maybe I want to grow up to be like her, because she's talking about how defining success. She calls it success. In this case, for us, would be glory, right? She defines success, and maybe the way I would like to grow up to define glory is that I get the autonomy to do what I want to make me happy, to be able to get to the level where I get to do what I want. And often where I find satisfaction is where I come into the room and I'm able to, instead of saying, what do I got to do to get the external okay from everybody, rather than doing that, come into the room and say, what do I get to do with all these people, and how do I give myself to this group? I try to continue. I try to do that whenever I'm able to do that. I'm happier, and that feels like glory to me. That feels like success to me, and it made me think. It helped me put it into a sentence when I read that article. It was really nice to be able to say, "Oh yeah, that's success." Not the medals, not the accolades, not the the records. It's you being okay in your own skin and being able to be of service to others. Because if you don't get to share what you learn, whether it's like what you're doing, like being able to take all those years of knowledge that you have on physical awareness and embodied awareness and all the research and all the certifications that you have, and be able to sort of transfer that knowledge into the real world for all these women that you work with, and make them happier by way of giving them a better life, a healthier life, then what's the point? I mean, that's glory. No, I don't know. What do you think?
So actually, you hit on a very important part of this, I guess, self-actualization. So I think when you are comfortable with yourself and confident in yourself and believe in yourself, when you achieve something that makes you feel good, that in itself is glory. And I think that you can carry glory with you inside wherever you go. And that is the mark of a strong person who is not only confident in themselves, but in love with themselves, and love themselves for who they are, what they represent, what they've learned to date, and what else they can learn in order to serve not only themselves through this lifetime, but others. And I think that alone is a beautiful concept. When someone is confident enough that They don't need that external validation, but can exist wherever and feel that sense of accomplishment or achievement, and find that glory. I think that is the ultimate. So that is what I think.
That's
You may
awesome.
not agree, but I don't know, or people may not agree
No,
with that. Yeah.
no, I think it's great. I think, you know what, I just made me think of, I think the values in sport become the values for life, and
Yeah.
that's what brings you that satisfaction, right? And
Yes.
you just made me think of something. I have one of the people we're hoping to have as a guest here. His name is one of the last people from my sports life that I saw in person a couple of years ago. He's a former Olympic hopeful. He's won numerous events and whatnot. And I invited him to come speak at one of my conferences. He's fantastic. He spoke. The kids loved him. Great guy. He's a great role model for a lot of people. His name's Tony Graff. And it just made me think of this. Like, I think, I wouldn't say the validation, but the love you get from the people around you. Like, obviously, this guy has been way more successful than me. He's done some great things, but really, what is precious about him is the way he reaches out to kids, the way he influences health, healthy living, and values and principles every day now, way more than he did than when he was competing for the Olympics. At that point, he was a role model to a number of people who wanted to be like him. Now he's a role model to what matters: young people and kids and parents. So I think that, and then to be able to have that person in my life, even if I don't see him that often, to be able to, at a conference, for example, sit down with him and this other awesome guy. His name is Larry Sunderland. Is a MLS coach. To be able to, because he also spoke at the event, to be able to just sit at the bar and have some coffee, talk about values in sports and all this sports teaches you, and to be able to share those moments. I think that's more valuable. That's what stays with you. The values of sports that transfer into the values of life, that you can be able to get together with people and for them to say, "It's nice to see you." Like, yeah, that's what life's all about, right? Like, to be able to say that. I mean, that's why I like talking to you.
Yeah. And you know what? It's about community too. I mean, that was the ingredient that made everything possible with what you just described, right? Community. Because here we are in our Substack community, sharing, talking, commiserating, but your experience that you just described too, that wouldn't have been possible if not for the community that supported and loved this former Olympian, right? And so that brings me to the next question.
And they stay there, and they say yeah, and they stay there. Cause all I do is win. And if you going in, put your hands in the air, make them stay there. Ludacris going in on the verse, cause I've never been defeated and I won't stop now.
Right? And so that brings me to the next question about commodification. When your glory becomes someone else's product. So let's talk about that. How does that make you feel when glory does become commodified? And I mean, there are a number of great examples in the athletic world.
Well, I have not. I didn't. I think, again, because of I missed the whole social media wave. I don't think I experienced that myself, but I've seen many of my friends who are like, the following generations of in competitions, and I've seen other athletes in other sports having to deal with that.
Yeah,
it's. I just think it's another layer of challenges. I know that it allows people to profit from it as far as like as athletes, and I think there's a positive on that, right? That they're able to find a way to finance their love for the sport, because I don't think people realize that there's only a handful of people that become well off money wise from a sport, especially an Olympic sport. I mean, I think people think that, you know, they might see somebody doing a Nike commercial
Yeah.
or a Gatorade commercial, and they're like at the peak or the top of their sport. They don't realize, like, for them to be able to be, you know, training in Oregon or at Olympic Training Center and making $25,000 a year, that's like great, you know, and those are the best people in the world. And they don't realize that that's like, they just want to be able to make ends meet so they can train and stay healthy so they compete again. You know, and eventually, depending on how famous their sport gets, how much attention they get from the media, then it gets bigger. You know, I think people are more used to seeing, you know, like UFC type fighters, and, you know, people who are on TV a lot more, and they, you know, and in this disposable type of way where, you know, you might take an athlete, which I think is terrible, you know, and it might be a good up and coming fighter, but because they're getting so much attention on social media, then they get a bigger fight, but they end up fighting somebody where they're here and in the trajectory they could get here, but because they are competing with somebody at this level so early, it can really destroy or damage their career mentally, physically. But then because of external interest in social media and, you know, their footprint out in the world, in the social media world, they get to come here and compete, but they're just being used. They're just being used by promoters. They're being used by people who really don't care about their growth. You know, there are some people who are exceptional, and yes, people are going to see them as an investment, as an asset, and say, okay, we're going to take this guy and go little by little and get them there. And, you know, I see that in other sports. I see that in soccer a lot in Europe, where they take a young person like 19, 18, and they give them a pretty decent contract with all these conditionals, they call them, in their contract. And as they get better, then, you know, but the expectation is they may get there, they may not get there, but it's going to be a slow process where within the next 5 to 7 years, they will get up here, but you got to give them the space. And I think that with this whole social media culture and environment, it's very difficult for a lot of young people to get ahead because they're so busy worrying about what they look like and how they are perceived. And I don't know how much that's taking time away from they're doing the hard work in the dark where it matters, so they can actually be successful in the sport. I don't know. What do you think?
You know, it's funny because I never really put too much thought into that aspect of how athletes are having to deal with the societal pressures of social media and needing to be on all the time and dealing with their fan base while tending to their sport. That is an understatement, what you just, you know, described in terms of how they can balance and juggle. It's likely so tough for them to try to remain at the top of their game. I mean, I'm thinking of F1 drivers, but they have teams, right? So if you're really in those high level sports, I suspect that someone like Lando Norris has a team of social media people managing his social feeds. That said, you are absolutely right. For the people who are just trying to break through and trying to show their agent that they have followers, that it's almost like a catch-22. I mean, you've got to do one thing while being at the top of your game in your sport, you know, no pun intended, but also having to be at the top within, you know, social media rankings. So that is virtually impossible. And like you said, they're just trying to make ends meet in order to pay for their training and their nutrition and the opportunity to show the world that they are talented and, you know, should be on the next Olympics team, etc. So definitely the world has changed in terms of what athletes, especially elite level athletes, need to tick off in their box for succeeding. I think that the success, you know, one pager that you have to check off in terms of, okay, this is where I'm at in the roadmap, is filled with so many more stops. And I think it's unnecessary, but unfortunately, I think that's where we're at. And I think this also ties in nicely into the next topic or area that I want to discuss before we conclude today's show. But athletic bodies as brands and leaders as slogans. In my opinion, I think that Michael Jordan is still one of the greats. And that's because he was born in a different time. He grew up in the media, in a different media landscape. There was no social media, and he became a superstar around the world without social media. So I think that's why he's got such massive staying power. And he's become so aspirational, even for, little kids that are growing up. They know who Michael Jordan is. I don't think anyone in the world who doesn't know who Michael Jordan is.
Right.
So for me, that is an excellent example of someone there's no mold. He's broken the mold, rather. There's no mold after him, and I think that for anyone to become that brand leader today with all of this noise, I think is going to be a tough slog. But whoever does, boy, oh boy, do they have power? Or is it, I think power is just so illusory these days. It's so here and then gone the next day. I mean, look at, sorry, again, I don't want to be offensive, but just the way that the American president became president, it was like entertainment. It was wild how just the sea of change went from one way to the other. And it just feels like we're living in a world that is almost like a video game. It's very strange.
Right. Well, and I think that's a consequence of what we talked about before, this the emptiness, of winning. There's an emptiness. There's a lot of empty souls out there who are really hungry for content, and they wanted more. I think that your example of Michael Jordan is so valid, because the reason why he's such a huge name, even to this date, is because it's through hard work. It's through dedication, perseverance, principles, all the stuff we talked about before. And that stuff, that's work that you do when nobody's watching. That's how you get there, by work.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's why it's permanent. But unfortunately, the way we are programmed to consume information nowadays is so gluttonous. It's more like, okay, Michael Jordan, what's next? Who's next? Who's the next one? Who's better? Who's better? And, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither are great people. So you can expect the next Michael Jordan to be around and to be great. And that's true for any sport, right? There are some, but I think the expectation that people have is that they want to be, like you said, they want to be entertained. They want to be, they want to consume the next thing, because they just want to constantly be getting the dopamine, shots to their brain, and just be like, okay, my brain got rewarded. I need something else now. This person's whatever success they have is like, I've seen it, I don't need to see it again. But that's not how real life works. And I think it's just a big disservice to consumers to show them that, that to give them that product that is empty, right? I think that people could learn more about, call me crazy, but like, I don't want a president that I can relate to, because, I don't want a president that I want to have a beer with. I'm an idiot. Like, I'm not qualified to run the country. Why do I want somebody who's like me to run the country? I want somebody smarter, better, right? It used to be like that before, and that's true regardless of whatever party you like. You want to be able to, kind of like what you said before, you want to be able to have role models from whom you learn. You don't want somebody to entertain. I want to be entertained. If I want to be entertained and I want low quality entertainment, I can go watch WWE. I don't need to see a leader of the world doing that, or going to a UFC fight. It's goofy.
It's
just silly. Yeah,
absolutely.
Silly. Yeah,
absolutely.
But you made me think of something, and I know we're almost out of time, but I want to say something and how this translates to the rest of the world, the real world that's not sports. This senseless consumption, I also think it affects going back to the way we are taught to consume or programmed to consume information, it affects so many things in their own way. Like the next Michael Jordan won't be around because the next Michael Jordan doesn't have time to be training as hard as Michael Jordan trained to get to that level. So we'll never get one, not in a long, long time, right? So that's a problem. The same problem goes with literature. I mean, there are so many people on the bestseller list on New York Times. They're terrible writers. I'm sorry, I'm terrible writers, but they're the kind of crap that people are consuming right now because it's like easy next, formula next. But like, where's the next Richard Roper? Where's the next Nick Hornby? Where's the next, like, really, where's the next, what's his name? I can't believe, Adam Grant. Where's the next, Malcolm Gladwell? Like, when is the next one of those? The ones that took decades to build.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
what I'm wondering.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at our entertainment on streaming services. Netflix and all of those streaming services have perfected the formula because that's what their audience wants. And it's predictable entertainment. It's, like you said, something that people don't have to think about in order to understand. And for me, that just makes the episode or the shows boring. I don't know what's happening, but I think
they're offensive. They're like
I think 20
minutes long, and they're like, "Well, are you serious? Are we that done?"
Yeah.
But every once in a while, there's some really good quality stuff, but then they get no ratings. Like there's a handful, but one that I watched recently that everybody should watch if you like good quality writing and shows. It was, I don't know the name, I think, but it's about the comedian, I think it's Michael Chiang or something. He's on the Late Show, one of the Tonight shows. But he was in that show, in a movie, Crazy Rich Asians. He was in a movie. Okay. He's one of the obnoxious brother-in-laws, whatever. Anyway, he is there, and there's another guy who had a smaller part in the movie who's there too. But anyway, it's about these two Asian characters who are background characters in the show, and they don't realize they're background characters in the show. So the whole is very existentialist. The whole premise. And maybe because I love Unamuno so much and existentialist philosophy so much, but I loved it. I watched the first episode, and I was like, I gotta watch this to the end. This is fantastic, And it wasn't like it wasn't your typical Netflix show. It was more like, I don't even know if it's on Netflix. It's one of those servers. I'll put it in the show notes. But it was so good because it really challenged the idea of, like, what do I represent? Kind of like what we're saying, like what is winning? What does glory look like? Do I need to be seen by everybody else to be noticed? And do I matter just because I don't matter to the producer? Like, what does that mean? That one and this other show that I really liked is called Severance. And I don't know if you know the premise. It's about people going into the office, and when they're going up the elevator, the memories from the outside go away, and then they have a life inside the office and life outside the office. It's such an interesting existentialist, like, challenging exercise for the mind, right? It's such a mind fuck, right? So so there's like those, and those hardly ever get the attention that you will get from like some other goofy thing, So I just think it's a disservice to the way, I think I don't know the research, but it's got to be some kind of correlation between the way we are consuming information and the way we are as an audience are expected to demand less and to be just gluttonous about just consuming any kind of crap.
Yeah, that's sad, because I think that the payoff or the moment, I think the formula has become diluted in terms of the kind of payoff you get, because people want to get to the solution faster because our attention spans are so much shorter. And I think that's basically it, sadly. So with everything that we consume on a daily basis, we always just want to go to the next thing. And I am reminded of the dating apps like, Hinge or Twitch or whatever they're called. No, Twitch is a gaming platform. Hinge. I think you have to swipe right or something to that effect. And that's what people are always doing on their phones. They're always swipe to get to the next email in their inbox, or to delete it, or to save it or store it or what have you. But it's that swiping motion that we've become so familiar with, right? And I think that's why my back hurts like I'm just swiping to get rid of all the emails that I never read in my inbox, and writing.
Yeah, but it doesn't work, friend. Think about it. People have access to more social media, but they have less friends. They go out less. They have access to all this data for training, but they're fatter, and have more diabetes. They have access to all these. No, it's true though. They have access to all these dating apps, but the young people are having less sex and they're more depressed. So like, it's really, I mean, all this optimization is really useful because it feels like it's actually making us sadder because, you know, because it sucks.
I know. Oh my God.
It's not human.
So on that cheery note,
right.
that actually takes us to the end of today's episode. But let's end it on a high note. Let's end it on a high note. So
drink coffee, feel better after listening to us.
Yes, drink coffee, feel better. Go out and hug your favorite person after joining us in today's show, because your energy will affect the next person that you share it with. So stay positive and tell the person that you love them.
Awesome. Whatever she said. No, it's good stuff. I love it. And I think that we cannot, I couldn't end it any better way. And I think just check out the show notes. We'll have some information about what we talked about before. And until next time.
Bye.
Bye, buddy.